Putin is responsible. Whether he ordered it or not, he is responsible for the circumstances that put that man in. And he is a reflection of who he is. And it just cannot be tolerated.
So that was President Biden blaming Vladimir Putin for opposition leader Alexei Navalny's death. Navalny's body reportedly found with signs of bruising, but Moscow claims that he died of sudden death syndrome. Meanwhile, the U.S. now reportedly fearful that Russia might put a nuclear weapon in space. Secretary of State Antony Blinken even asking China and India to try to talk Russia down. That is a new report from the New York Times. Florida Congressman Michael Waltz joined Maria on Sunday Morning Futures, warning about the threat.
Walk us through the details, if you can, whatever you can tell us about this anti-satellite weapon that Russia has obtained.
This threat is so serious, so grave. If this weapon is allowed to fully deploy, it could completely blind our economy. It would take out our GPS. It could blind our military. Wow. It is incredibly serious. It's a weapon of mass destruction. The fear is that Putin has calculated we are far more dependent on space than he is, so that perhaps this would be at his advantage.
Joining me now is Virginia Congressman Rob Wittman. He's a member of the House Armed Services, Natural Resources, and China Select Committees. Congressman, your reaction? There's been a lot of controversy since the details about the Russian plans were released in the House by one of your colleagues who has faced a lot of blowback for that. At the same time, now this new report says that we are looking to China in particular and India to help us deal with Russia.
Well, first of all, the threat is real, but it's not immediate. The good news is we have time to deter Russia from operationalizing this threat, and I think we absolutely have to do that. We have lots of tools at our avail to be able to make that happen. I'm not certain or confident that China is going to come to our aid to try to deter Russia. As we know, they have a building relationship with Russia. It's not in their interest to do things that would actually de-risk United States assets in space because they're competing with us in space. But I do think it's important to understand that this information is critical for us to act on. And we do have lots of things at our avail in space. In fact, I just met this past week with our leaders in the Space Force to make sure we're doing everything across every asset in space, both public and private assets, to make sure that we are countering the threats not just from Russia, but from China and others in space. That is the frontier where people look to take out our capabilities, whether it's GPS, weather satellites, you name it. People know how important it is to the economy of the United States. So we should not undersell the magnitude of this threat. But I am very, very confident that we have the ability to counter this threat.
Well, I think just to be clear here, the New York Times made the point, and they're reporting that Antony Blinken reached out to China and India because he said, look, it's not just going to be our satellites that are going to be hit by a Russian nuclear weapon or whatever weapon this is going to be, it's going to be yours too. So I think that was a fair point. And I do want to go back to the topic of Alexei Navalny. Obviously, this was a tragedy that happened on Friday, maybe not unexpected. I want to bring in Tiana Lodesh. She's got a question for you.
So Alexei Navalny, seen on Thursday, perfectly healthy, almost joking on camera. On Friday, he's dead. 47 years old. It would have been probably less suspicious if he fell out of a sixth-story window, as we know that Putin has previously taken out some of his enemies. Back in 2021, President Biden promised that there would be consequences if, Navalny was deleted from the Russian discourse. But right now there's this aid package that in the House, I don't know what the plan is, but is it money to Ukraine? What consequences will there be? Will House Republicans join Biden in having consequences? Does Biden even know what he wants to do with this red line?
Well, we know that this is how Putin operates, so it's not surprising that he took out his opposition in Navalny. The question is, what is the United States going to do in relation to the statement that the president made about the consequences for taking out Navalny? I think there are lots of things on the table. We have, as a Congress, questions before us about funding the effort in Ukraine. I do think that that effort is going to be part of the discussion that takes place about what are the consequences to Russia for taking out Navalny. And then, two, we see just this past weekend where now they are incarcerating Russians. They came out in remembrance of Navalny. So this is typical of how Putin operates. His biggest worry are opposition within his country that would potentially take him out. And I think, too, that that informs his decisions and the things that he says and does in the future.
Well, but again, are you willing to join with President Biden to impose new sanctions on Russia? Is that a possibility?
Listen, I think we have to. Strictly impose the ones that are there. I would argue the ones that the sanctions that are in place on Russia right now, if they were properly imposed, could have a significant impact on Russia. They have found ways to get around the current sanctions, Cheryl, and that, I think, has weakened the United States position. Okay. So I have no problem with entertaining additional sanctions, but let's fully implement the ones that we have in addition to considering others. I do think that we can put significant pressure on Russia and Russia's economy, but only if we are fully committed to those sanctions and our friends and allies are there with us.
Before you go, real quick, I do want to get your reaction to the president. It appears that he's gotten mixed up again while urging House lawmakers to pass that Senate foreign aid bill. But watch what he says here at the end.
So the idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split, is totally against the interests of the United States of America. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO.
So look, he said funding NATO. What he really meant was funding Ukraine. Look, I mix up words too sometimes, but your quick reaction before we go here on this.
Sure. Well, listen, it is troubling to see the president's cognitive decline. We are having the discussions in Congress, in the House, concerning the issues of funding not only Ukraine, but Israel and Taiwan. As Speaker Johnson has said, the Senate bill is going nowhere in the House, but there are many members of the House that want to have the discussion about what is the path forward on funding for all three of those entities. We see what's happening around the world. The United States does, by the way, have a very strong legal obligation under the NATO agreement. Let's look at what we need to do in this nation to make sure we protect our interests, not only now, but in the future.
All right, Congressman Rob Wittman. Congressman, thank you for getting up early, and we appreciate this on a hot day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Cheryl.